Hey everyone, my name is Isabel, instructor at 22A North Bay. Today, as part of our series of tutorials, I will show you how to do a crow pose, which is a very popular pose in yoga. I will also show a lot of different progressions for beginners and to help you to get there. First, make sure that you warm up your wrists. I did a complete warm-up for the wrists routine in my handstand tutorial, and I will put the link in the description. So make sure that you do that before you start. Enjoy! Before we even get on our hands, we're going to try to feel how the crow pose should feel like from the floor. So lay on the floor with your knees bent. The small of your low back should be in contact with the ground. Then bring your feet and your knees together and hug them towards your chest. Use your arms at first to bring them as close as possible to your chest, and as you do that, try to point your toes so that you're creating some tension in the front of your shins. Then bring your head towards your knees as if you want to do a crunch, and try to squeeze everything in as tightly as possible. You should be feeling a pretty strong contraction in your core here, and we're going to try to hold it here for 5 long, deep inhale and exhales. From there, see if you can extend your arms by your sides, keeping your knees in the same spot. You should be feeling a lot more contraction coming from your hip flexors in this position. So really working on core compression here. Again, try to hold on for 5 long inhales and exhales. You may feel the shakes. Try to hold on. Now you can release. We're going to try the same thing again, but this time our arms are going to be straight up to simulate the position of the crow, but in reverse. So it takes the gravity factor out of the way. As you extend your arms, try to spread out your shoulder blades so that you're rounding your upper back, and then bring your knees towards your chest. This time the goal is to place your knees in the back of your arms. Try to go as close to your armpit as you can. That will depend on your core strength and flexibility. And then you're going to come into that curved ball position again, so crunch and nose towards your knees, keeping the arms straight right above your shoulders, and trying to keep those knees as close to your arms as possible. Even if they are not touching, that's okay, but keep them as close as you can. And we're going to hold it here for 5 long inhales and exhales. Now we're going to try a similar drill, but from a sitting position. This is actually much harder for your core than the actual crow pose itself, because in this case gravity is not helping you to compress your core. So you're going to try to bring your knees close to your chest using your arms at first. So as close as you can, and then you're going to extend your arms again so that they're in line with your shoulders, and the back of your arms should be resting on top of your knees. And try to spread out your shoulder blades. Same principle, rounding the upper back and trying to bring your torso as close as possible to your thighs. And from there, depending on your core strength and flexibility, you can either keep your feet flat on the ground if you feel that it's already hard enough as it is. You're going to feel this in your hip flexors a lot. But if you want a little bit more challenge, try to lift your heels off the ground so that you're on your tippy toes. And for those of you who are very flexible and very strong, you may even be able to lift your feet off the ground, which I'm not able to do. But if you can, by all means, don't limit yourself to that. Go for it. Try to lift either 1 foot or 2 feet off the ground and hold that compressed position for 5 long inhales and exhales. Now that we know how our core engagement should feel like, we're going to move on to our hands. I recommend you grab a sturdy object. Here I'm using a yoga block. You can use anything that's about 2 to 3 inches high, the highest, the easiest, just so that you can elevate your feet, and that's going to make it easier to get into the position at first. And also to note, if you're afraid of falling forward, just place a pillow or a thick mat under your head so that it will take that fear away. And from there, we're going to try to get into the crow with arms bent. The crane is with arms straight. But we're going to do it at first with wider knees because that's an easier position for most people, especially when you're learning it the first time. So place your knees, bend your elbows, and place your knees on the outside of your arms. And then try to shift your weight over your hands, keeping your fingers widely spread out so that you're creating that stable base. And then if that's just as far as you can go, that's okay. Just keep playing with the shift forward and back. And if you feel like you can go a little bit further, try to lift one foot off the ground or off the block and hold it for about 2 to 3 seconds. Then you can place it down, lift the other foot off, and keep playing with that, lifting one foot off at a time, and just feel the difference in your core contraction as you do that. And remember that feel, you want to contract your core, you don't want to just rest your knees on your arms. You want the movement to come from the core. And then obviously if you feel that you've got the hang of it, you've got the core contraction and you're feeling the weight shift on your hands, try to go for it and see if you can lift both feet off the ground and balance for a few seconds. You can also use your block as a head support. So if lifting your feet off the ground is not so much of an issue for you, it's mostly the balance, then I recommend you try practicing the placing the block or whatever object you're using right under your head, so you can use it as an added stability. And that's a great progression if the balance is mostly the issue. You can also do both, so having your feet on one object and another object to help you balance. If you are comfortable holding the crow pose with knees wide, I would say for at least 10 to 15 seconds, then you're ready to move on to the next progression, which is to place your knees on the back of your arms. And this is when the core compression becomes very important, because if you're not using your core, then you're placing all your lower body weight on your forearms, and this is going to hurt a lot on the back of your arms. But if it hurts, don't do it. Just come back to practicing the wide knee crow, and as well as the core compression drills we did from the floor. But if you want to try this progression, then you can start with your knees right above the elbow joint. And progressively, as you get better at it, try to move your knees up your arm. And eventually, maybe you'll be able to get your knees all the way up into your armpits. And this would be necessary in order to learn the crane, where you're fully extending your arms. So it's a good challenge to give yourself. And as with anything else, whatever level you're at right now, if you want to get better at it, you need to practice it regularly. So I would recommend 2 to 3 times per week, but it doesn't take more than 5 to 10 minutes per day. Just practicing the drills from the floor, as well as the progression where you're comfortable right now, and see if you can improve on that following the steps I outlined in this tutorial. And if you're able to get your knees close to your armpits, then maybe you can work on trying to extend your arms, which is going to require a lot more wrist flexibility. But if you practiced often, then your wrist flexibility is going to improve as well. So there's no magic solution. It's just to follow the smart steps of the progression of the movement and practicing it regularly so your body adapts and you get stronger and more flexible. If you're feeling strong and stable and you want to try the crane, just notice that as I'm extending my arms, my hips are lowering and I'm keeping my spine rounded the whole time as my knees are tucked in close to my chest. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and as with anything else, if you're not sure that you should be trying this depending on your condition, then go check out the questionnaire that will be given as a link at the end of the video.